Hello, Scorpio. Welcome to The Modern Spiritualist. My name is Raheem. Today we're going to look at February for you guys. These are general readings, so take what resonates, leave what does not. If you would like to schedule a private reading with me, please do so in the box below. So you can use this for Scorpio, Sun, Moon, or Rising. I did 2 Oracle cards, Threads of Fate Oracle. I did Celtic Cross Spread with a brand new deck that I got. It's Quantum Tarot. And it's very, very complex deck that I don't fully understand yet because I've only done a few readings with it, so bear with me. And let's just get started. So, starting with your Oracle cards, these are going to kind of sum up the whole month for you. These are the threads of fate that literally weave through the rest of these cards. So, 2 of my favorites, the Shadow and the Warrior. Let's start with the Shadow. Your shadow selves are active. Yeah, a lot of activity I'm feeling into, which is really interesting because normally I wouldn't read that. I would read whatever it is that, you're focused on healing, but it kind of feels like shadow selves are just up in the air and kind of having a party. So, interesting. I mean, that indicates to me that you're probably in a period of great change. You probably have been for a while because you're Scorpio, and that's kind of the deal. It's so interesting. Because these shadow cells wouldn't be so active. The shadow parts of you, which are parts that have been rejected by your protective self and then shoved into the archetypal space called the shadow. So they're parts of your soul that aren't able to make conscious decisions in your life, but they do act unconsciously in ways that are generally disruptive, not because they are disruptive by nature, but because they were shoved into the shadow. So now they're trying to get your attention by acting a fool, basically. The tricky thing about shadow parts is they are unconscious. And so while people around you are super, super aware of your shadow patterns, usually you as an individual tend to not be aware of them. That's the nature of it because you've deliberately chosen to forget about these parts of you. And, but they're just so visible to everyone else. And so that's the trick here, is that with a lot of shadow parts active and up in the air, usually the reason why they're so active is because you're changing in some way or leveling up in some way. And so what happens is your protective self, your ego, gets scared of the changes and kind of sends a little zap of energy into the shadow realm, into your shadow realm, to activate your shadow selves, to get them to disrupt your growth. And so that you get scared and you go back into the old way of being where your ego goes, oh, you're safe now, right? So it's such a challenge. It's like the most challenging thing. I think it's the single most challenging thing of all spiritual work that I've done personally, maybe equal to ancestral patterns. But the thing about shadow is it's so, so sneaky. The nice thing about Scorpio is that if you really live consciously as a Scorpio energy, I think you're more equipped to deal with shadow than some others, because the way that shadow is sneaky and hidden and secretive and slippery, is something that you're good at dealing with by nature. And so, in that sense, don't freak out. And also, in that sense, applaud yourself for where you're at. These shadow parts are activating because you're growing. And so, that's something to celebrate within that. Within that, I think it's important to acknowledge that they're there and they're active within you. And if you really do your work, like if you really live in a conscious way, you will become aware of certain shadow patterns over time. So even though most of them are wholly unconscious, there may be an aspect of shadow that you're like, oh, I do this thing, it's really disruptive, and I can't stop doing it. And that could come in, that can come in a lot of different packages. I mean, one way to become aware of a shadow pattern is because people keep reflecting it back to you until it's been reflected back to you enough that you're aware that it's there. and then you go, oh, this needs to be addressed. People keep telling me that I do this thing. And so that's one way. Another way is if there's just an aspect of your life that just continues to fall apart. I think a good example, maybe in my life, of a past shadow pattern would be like work just never working for me. Like I would get myself into toxic work environments. I wouldn't stay in one workplace for very long. I wouldn't be able to be productive in workplace. I mean, that's also an ADHD pattern that was separate, but it's also just a lack of ability to make things work. And it was so weird to me because as far as I knew, I was making all the right choices for me to be safe, to survive, to work the best way that I could, regardless of whether I liked the work or not. You know, I would show up with very good intentions and everything would fall apart. And then I realized it was linked to a shadow pattern, who I'd kind of given the name chimney sweeper, and it was this part of me that I had rejected because the not in shadow, that energy was the energy of the diviner. And so when I was working on, this is the first shadow transformation, shadow reclamation I ever did, it's a couple of years ago, I had to, you know, work on healing this part of me that had been dubbed the chimney sweeper. And so chimney sweeper was keeping me small, unable to hold on to healthy work, and all of these things because he wasn't with me. I mean, he had been rejected, so I wasn't utilizing his energy, and so it's manifesting in all these dysfunctional ways. And everybody else is like, why can't you get it together? Why can't you just find a job that works? You know, why can't you do all these things? And I was like, I don't know. I finally did the shadow reclamation, you know, process through my shamanic work. And through that, I transformed Chimney Sweeper into the Diviner. I pulled him out of shadow. I integrated him with the rest of my soul. The Diviner did a lot of different things for me, but then also manifested for me a year later as me becoming a professional tarot reader. And it's not like I really made the connection right away. There was just a moment that I had where I was like, oh, that's that energy, you know, and all of a sudden things are steady and good because I'm utilizing the energy properly. Rather than rejecting my natural gifts. And so, you know, we shove these gifts in shadow because they're not accepted socially for some reason, and we're children trying to survive, you know, but then we become adults and it's no longer super beneficial to remain in these wounded child patterns. And so that's where the healing work comes in. We don't do initiatory processes the way that, you know, indigenous shamanic cultures would, where when you became a teenager, you would undergo this whole, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Vision quest type challenge where you would be forced to confront all the wounded parts of you, reconcile them, and turn into a spiritual adult, like a full adult that lives as a true adult rather than a wounded child in an adult's body. And that's what we are in this collective at this time, is we're mostly wounded children in an adult body. I'm in the process of becoming an adult. I maybe know like 3 adults. So, you know, if we can accept where we are, and it's just where we are collectively, it's just what we've inherited from our society, and that's what we're working to change, you know, shadow is a big part of this because it's very protective for the ego to shove things away that aren't accepted. It's just like, oh, we'll just hide all the aspects of me that are quote unquote wrong because society tells me it's wrong, and, you know, parents in your life don't know how to deal with your particular gifts because you're a child. And it needs to be dealt with in a certain way so that you learn how to work your own energy, right? And so, you know, I shoved my psychic ability away. I mean, not fully, but like a particular psychic gift. And I think that was the part of my psychic gifts that I saw worth in, and so was able to turn into commerce. It was like a particular thing. And so, I mean, this is a really big preamble. I haven't even gotten into the Celtic cross spread yet, but I think it's really important to really talk about what shadow is since this is coming up. And I think collectively we tend to look at shadow as, I mean, there's kind of like the dark versus light thought camp, where it's like you have the light aspects of yourself and the shadow aspects of yourself and your dark side and whatever. Not accurate. And then there's also, like, in New Age community, there's this these processes to deal with shadow, but it's not actually shadow that's being dealt with. It's just marginalized, wounded parts. It's not as deep as shadow. The thing about shadow is it's so difficult to access that most of us don't for an entire lifetime, and so we stay stuck in these patterns. There is a way out of it, but there are very few modalities that handle it effectively. And so this is just something that I want you to keep in your sights, is that shadow aspects are at play here. It's important not to blame yourself, to shame yourself, or judge yourself. It's also important not to use shadow as an excuse for poor behavior either. And so, you know, I think it's in this place where you have a lot of shadow aspects up in the air because you're changing, you're transforming, you're evolving, you're Scorpio. It's what you do. And what else do I want to say about that? What I'm getting from Spirit is just the awareness is important. You have these shadow aspects of yourself. Now, what's nice about the Warrior card is that you have to engage in spiritual warriorship to properly deal with shadow. And so this is asking you to step into spiritual warriorship. Now, a really important thing about spiritual warriorship, an important aspect of it, is that healing and transformation does not occur when we're in blame, shame, or judgment. And so you really need to leave blame, shame, and judgment at the door, mostly about yourself, the ways that you blame yourself, shame yourself, or judge yourself. But you can use the way that you project that on other people to dive into yourself. So if you find yourself in judgment of another, that's a really good indication that there's actually a shadow pattern. Whatever you judge or shame someone else for is usually a pattern within yourself that you're just not aware of. And so be aware of your projections. What else? There's kind of this sense of like making a commitment to the fight. Like, because you're changing and you're growing and evolving and transforming, these shadow aspects are coming up to prevent you. And so there is a little bit of a need to stand your ground and say, okay, even though I'm scared, even though these patterns are trying to drag me back into old ways of being, into the unconscious, into patterns that will disrupt my growth and evolution, even though I feel this pull from the shadow to make myself small, I need to stand firm and be who I am now, which is a person that is growing away from certain patterns, right? So being in your warriorship means I'm going to face my fear. I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. I'm going to continue to do my work regardless. And what you need to hold is the balance between, I'm not going to let shadow prevent me from what I need to do, but you also need to hold your shadow parts like they're your children. Like, you know, you might have to just talk to those parts of yourself like they're children. Like, no, we're not going to do that. It's going to be okay. You're safe. I'm going to do this thing. I know it's scary. I'm going to do it anyway, right? And just keep going. So, like, there's a sense of, like, needing to nurture your shadow selves rather than judging them. And through that nurturing, they'll start to shift in some very small ways, but profound ways. Because the more you shift those shadow selves over time by showing up without blame, shame, or judgment, the more conscious of those patterns you become, and the more you're willing to stand up anyway and say, no, this is what we're going to do, the easier it will be for you to kind of move through your work day, you know, or whatever, your day, to move through your day when shadow parts are really active. This is a Mercury retrograde month, which means that we're all confronting our shadow on some level. We're all confronting the past on some level. That's just the name of the game. And so remember that this will pass, and any work that you do to become conscious without blame, shame, or judgment of your shadow patterns and continue to move down your path, the better shape you'll be in. I do feel resistance, but I also don't think there's a way out of it. I think you're just going to have to keep going up the river even if the current is fighting against you at the moment. And I don't usually say that. I'm much more of a person to say go with the river, go with the flow, go with the universe, but because the resistance is coming from these shadow parts, and there's nothing you can really do unless you have a certain amount of skill to engage in these modalities that fully transform them effectively, you're just going to have to manage them. And I hate saying that because teaching people how to work with shadow is like my dream, right? And so for me to say you're just going to have to manage makes me feel like I'm shorting you. But I think what's important to keep in mind here is that if you really want to do the real work to transform these, and you feel ready to step up to that work, there are resources for you, and you can contact me, okay? Otherwise, if you're not ready for all that, you're just going to have to be aware and manage and keep moving forward, and keep pushing in spite of the resistance, okay? Moving into the Celtic Cross spread. Wow, that was a lot. Okay. Your starting place this month. Knight of Wands. By the way, I'm sorry if you can hear my rabbit behind me. She's doing this new thing where she enjoys chewing on the metal bars of her cage instead of her toys. And so, life goes on. There's going to be noise in the background. Okay. I feel a real motivation and drive to keep moving forward. So that makes me feel a little better because I feel like, yes, these shadow parts are at play, but you're just kind of like, there's like an intense focus. There's an intense focus to keep going forward and to kind of shove these to the outskirts. I don't think that's actually necessarily a bad thing. And again, this kind of goes against what I would normally say because usually I would say that that's bypassing, right? But I think just because of the nature of shadow, you just need to work with what you can do, even if that means just kind of shoving it and moving forward. So you can't shove them more deeply into the closet than you already have. So if you can, instead of getting pulled into the unconscious pattern and back into an old way of being, if you can instead just kind of say no, reject the pattern, and keep moving forward in your new direction, I think that's enough for now. If you need to just, this is Warriorship too, if you need to stand up and set a boundary with your shadow parts, again, lovingly but firmly, set a boundary with your shadow parts. No, we're not going to do this today, and keep going forward in the direction that you're heading. That's enough. That's enough. Yeah, because I feel motivation and drive to move forward. It seems like there are things happening in your life to be very excited about, and I think that is so motivating that you are going to be able to have the capacity to just keep moving forward. So proud of you guys. Crossing that energy, we have the Four of Wands. This is a foundational card. What I like about this one in particular, just from this deck, is that it shows a lot of movement within that foundation. And so keep in mind you already have a foundation, you already have support. And so within that foundation of support that you already have, that you have worked to build, right? You are able to move freely. That's the nice thing about really being grounded, really having support, really having, something firm to stand on as you build and explore and grow, because that just stays stable, right? There's this stabilizing force of grounding that just stays where it is, it stays rooted, and within that you are free to just kind of move about the cabin, right? And so use this time to really explore certain things. And I don't even think internally necessarily, although you can, I think there's things around you to explore. And if you can lean on that exploration with the confidence that you're grounded enough to veer off in whatever way that you would like to, I think that you might access things that inspire you in new ways, and that inspiration will continue to help you continue to help you move forward, and just keep plowing along in the direction that you want to go. So you have support. You have things to occupy your time, exciting things, and you have things to explore. And so give yourself the leeway to do so. I don't think that's going to be hard. I think you're really there. You're really feeling it. I can feel it from you. Deep past affecting the present. 9 of Pentacles. By the way, I'm not doing reversals in this deck because I just didn't feel reversals when I pulled them. It just doesn't seem to make sense with this deck because it's like quantum and science-based, and so it's like, what do you mean reverse Big Bang? Like it just doesn't make any sense, so no reversals. We have the 9 of Pentacles, which I keep pulling for you guys, I feel. The energies of this card are so interesting and different, so it really takes me a minute to sink into it, this deck. So classically, this means gain, self-worth, growth, kind of like late spring trees and things. What I feel from this, though, is universal energy. And there's abundance in that. There's universal energy all around you. I mean, classic Qigong. Gather universal energy, bring it down into your body, right? And that's how we gain energy and resource ourselves in healthy ways. Within that, there is this remembrance that there are resources all around you. Like the very air is vibrating with this universal energy that you can draw in. It's infinite. You can't draw in too much. You can't draw too much earth energy into your body. You can't draw too much cosmic energy into your body. You can't overrun yourself. It's just abundant, right? So it's like, don't be stingy when you're resourcing from the air. And everything is made up of atoms, vibrating atoms. Everything. You're a part of that. You are made of vibrating atoms in a world made of vibrating atoms. We live in an existence made of each other, right? Some of you have an ancestral piece. I'm getting this for several of you. Not all of you, but several. There's this ancestral pattern, this dysfunction. I think it's going to leak into the shadow. I think they're interwoven, often are. That's just not in a good relationship with money. That doesn't necessarily mean you don't have money. It can, you can have money or not have money and still have a scarcity mindset. And so I think this deep past is coming out of this deep feeling of scarcity, of like, I don't have enough. Or feeling like you're not enough. I don't have enough is just an offshoot of I'm not enough. It's I don't have worth is the limiting belief that creates a lack of worth around you, because it feels like you don't deserve worth, and so then it doesn't flow. Now, with people that have money, it usually creates a hoarding mentality. With people that don't have money, panic because you don't have money. You know what I mean? So, and then you can't get money because you keep generating this sense of panic about not having it, and then it continues to not flow. And it doesn't just have to be money. Resources are literally everything. Anything that makes you able to live and utilize things within your life. So, food is a resource, shelter is a resource. So are all the tools in your toolbox, whether that's, the coffee mug on the counter, the computer that you use to work, or your inner sense of happiness and wealth and abundance that generates and manifests everything else around you, right? So, you have inner and outer resources. Even if you don't have as many as you would like or need, you still have some because you're here surviving, which means that you have some form of resource. Even breath is a resource, air is a resource, like I said earlier. Universal energy is the most abundant resource that you can always draw in. And so you may need to take a look at what ancestral patterns, family patterns, shadow patterns are keeping you in a dysfunctional relationship with money and resource. Who is afraid they don't have enough or won't have enough around the corner? Who is afraid that they're not enough, that they don't have worth? Who in you thinks that you need to earn love or resources? Because you don't. You're here, and that's enough. You just being here gives you the right as a living being to eat and breathe and be happy. Okay, so who in you is telling you otherwise? And where does that come from? Ask yourself, is it old? Is it from childhood, or is it even older? Is it past lifetimes? Have you never been in a situation in which you had a different idea? That's the thing about ancestral patterns. It's really sneaky because our ancestral patterns are the lens through which we view reality, because we've never been able to be separate from it in this incarnation. So we come out of the womb with this certain lens, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's reality. I mean, it's our reality that we're then manifesting, but it's not necessarily objective, observable reality, because it's a very specific lens via our ancestral patterns through which we're viewing it. And so The sneaky thing about that is we tend to not understand what the opposite of that is because we literally can't. We're so stuck in our ancestral patterns. So if this feels ancestral to you, I highly recommend reaching out to me and asking for resources to get that healed, because an ancestral healing is literally like lifting a veil over your eyes, and it's like you're seeing reality for the first time. It is crazy awesome, and instant transformation can come out of it. It can also activate your shadow because whatever ancestral patterns have been lifted and cleared, your shadow gets stirred because it's like, oh, what the hell happened? Something is different. And that's not a bad thing because it means it's probably being activated because it's ready to shift. So if you're having a heavy ancestral dysfunctional pattern that you're trying to address, and you do decide to get it healed this month, that may be why the shadow patterns are activating, because they're like, something changed. What's going on? So that's good. That means that things are becoming conscious because the veil has been lifted. So whoever is going through that, good work. I'm certainly going through that. Scorpio rising, so this is all me. I did some ancestral healings recently, and they're still integrating, and they're integrating into family members that are also Scorpios. And so I'm weaving a web for my Scorpio people, definitely, in my family in general. Okay, so what else? Ace of Wands. I highly recommend a healing around the scarcity if needed. If it's not ancestral, I think it really is for most of you. But if it's just you from your childhood, there's a pattern that's stirring up shadow, and whatever healing work you do this month to address your feelings of scarcity, even if it's like you just have to hack away at it, like, you know, a good standby, if you're not ready for all this healing work, a good standby is doing a brain dump, writing down all of your limiting beliefs, and then crossing them out and rewriting them as an affirmation. And through just doing that, if you do it consistently, like if your limiting belief around money is fleeting and I'll never have enough, right? You cross that out, you write, I'm a money magnet and abundance always flows to me, right? If you keep doing that, writing down limiting beliefs, crossing them out, writing the affirmation next to it, what you're doing is you're reprogramming your reality over time. So it takes time and consistency and belief, you know. But if you just affirm to yourself, saying them out loud too, so your heart can hear them, so the universe can hear them, your new affirmations, what you want your reality to be, releasing them to the universe, and catching your brain whenever it does that to you, and then saying the affirmation to yourself instead. What you're doing is you're basically erasing the old belief system that your thoughts are creating, and you're creating a new belief system that then will generate a new reality for you, because reality always reflects back our current state. So you can always do that. And if you do, whatever healing work you do, whether you're reprogramming that way or some other way that works for you, or you get a healing or whatever, the second that you do it and that pattern starts to shift, you're going to have a huge lift off. That's why I think some of you are definitely getting a healing, because sometimes that instant lift off comes from healing, comes from like getting help. This is like rocket to the moon, right? So Ace of Wands, this is like the path is just clear. Like the path has just been cleared for you for the first time. And it's going to contribute to this Knight of Wands. Damn, Mercury retrograde. I cannot speak as well. This Knight of Wands energy and this Ace of Wands energy are literally just you speeding forward. And it's so magical, and it's so exciting, and there's so much motivation inside you and inspiration. And so this is just a great month to address everything that's holding you back, because you are in a space where you can shift it. And so I feel liftoff. I feel it this month. I feel liftoff. It's probably going to be stop and go, because that's the nature of healing and transforming. But the potential here for you to just keep going and not stop as we come out of this is so high. And that's the thing about Scorpio too, is you have so much energy. Now that may just be a lot of energy maybe buried in trauma, a lot of energy maybe if you're a mind heavy person and you don't really holistically spread your energy around your field, then your mind could just be ping-ponging itself all day long, and that's where your energy goes. But regardless, Scorpios have access to so much energy. That's what that intensity is. It's energy. Scorpio rules the sexual organs. The sexual organs house our procreative energy, so it's what's generating everything. It's what makes you powerful manifestors, for better or for worse, right? And so when that energy gets released or balanced out so that there's no disparity or leakage or whatever, it really is like there is nothing between you and your goal. It's just like, boom. The Scorpio power to just unleash is almost unrivaled. I mean, there's a few other signs that may match it, but not a lot. And so lean on that. Lean on your ability. And, I did this recently where I, was addressing the particular way that my Scorpio and Capricorn energy feed each other. And what I was finding was this incredible amount of focused energy. It's like tunnel vision kind of thing. But I could easily, it's so beneficial for me when I'm focusing on the right thing, because nothing can stop me. When I'm focusing on the wrong thing, it's a fucking black hole, right? And so I think that's what Scorpios deal with a lot, is if you're going down the wrong, if you're not in your alignment and you're going down some spin-off location, I think things just get weird. And I think that's why Scorpios have a tendency to struggle, especially because you're a fixed sign. And so it's like, if you're really, really fixated on this particular way of being, of thinking, of doing, of whatever, and it's not in your alignment, it just doesn't feel good. It just feels really bad, especially because you have so much energy to devote to the thing. So if you're devoting it to the wrong thing, I think it just gets confusing. I think it gets really confusing. And so we just need you to adjust, to come back into your alignment, so the energy that's being released from you is the line you want to go down, right? And this is the path. I think that's the Scorpio path, is how do I utilize my energy effectively for change, for healing, for growth, for evolution, right? And so this is just the way. You have the power. And this is just the life path in which you are learning how to utilize that power in a good way, okay? In your foundation this month, we have the 3 of Swords. I feel a powerful drive for you to heal. I think some of you may have come into contact recently, become conscious of these shadow patterns, right? Come into contact recently with dysfunctional ways of being, or ways of being that just don't work for you anymore, or pain that you have that you didn't realize was there, or maybe you knew it was there, but now you feel driven to finally unravel it. Sometimes we can get really identified with our pain so it doesn't move, but I think it gets to a point, at least for me, I either get bored of my pain or I get tired of it. And so through that exhaustion or boredom, I'm like, I need to change, right? And so I think that's what's happening for some of you, is you're like, I'm just tired of this. Whatever wound is really hurting you right now, you're like, I am tired of being in this mindset, looping through the feelings, whatever. Because here's the thing, and I see this with water signs too, and I think I said this to Cancer as well. The thing with water placements, that is kind of the opposite of what earth and air signs tend to do, is water placements can get really identified with their emotion, and instead of processing it, they're just in a loop with it. So they're not actually releasing the emotion, they're just looping it over and over and over again. Whereas earth and air signs have a tendency to reject entirely and not deal with it and bury it. And so it's like, people that don't bury tend to loop, and most Scorpios tend to loop in it. And so what emotions are you looping in? Why isn't it being released? And how can you actually release it so you stop the loop, right? What needs to be expressed? What needs to come out in a healthy way so that the energy is actually resolved? And I think one way to do that is to disidentify with the emotions. You are not your emotions. Your emotions are something you're experiencing. You are a whole holistic person. You're an eternal soul, all that good shit. And so, if you're experiencing an emotion, it's just trying to indicate to you what needs adjustment. That's what emotions are for. This needs to be adjusted, right? They're guides. And so if you're identifying with them, you're using your emotion incorrectly. They're not supposed to be an identifier for your personality or ego. They're supposed to be a signifier that something in you needs to shift. And so where's the pain? Where's the hurt? Why are you looping? and what needs to happen so that the loop discontinues. I think it's just going to be a mindset shift. This I am not my emotions might be enough to push it out. This being in your foundation, I feel like this is really a catalyst. Like your exhaustion, boredom, etc., with this pattern that's keeping you stuck is the motivation that's making you spring into action and do this healing work. That's why everything's coming up. You asked it to. You asked for healing, and you're getting it. And you're just in the thick of it right now because everything that hasn't been healed yet is going, hey, I need healing. And so remember, that's all it is. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. Don't feel like this is going to happen forever. Do what you can to stay resourced, stay in your breath, stay grounded, and just maintain the perspective that these are coming up because they want to be healed, not because you're going crazy or anything like that, okay? Okay, you asked to be healed, and this is the way. This is the path. Okay. Crowning you this month. The Page of Wands. A lot of wands. A lot of wands. Again, rocket to the moon. Third rocket to the moon. Well, Knight of Wands is more like a rocket straight down your path. Ace of Wands is more like a rocket to the moon. Page of Wands is like, it's like you're sending feelers out. This is more like the initiation, like I'm ready to roll. It's like the takeoff. Page of Wands is like, it's not quite the landing, but you're in the sky, you're in the celestial sphere, you're looking for the answer, right? So you're looking for answers this month. Higher answers. If you look, you will get them, because the universe does not make you suffer just to suffer. Right? There's gifts in the suffering, and because you're struggling with all this, you just need to make sure that you ask for support. Whether it's people in your life, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a healing that you need to do from somebody. I would recommend shamanic practitioners because they're the most effective. Some healings are short-term. A Reiki healing is an adjustment. But, the old pattern will come back eventually if you don't do the work. Whereas shamanic healing is permanently effective. So I always recommend shamanic healing. Of course, that's my bias towards shamanic healing because that's the only thing that has worked for me in my experience long-term. But, so whatever you want to do, of course, by all means. But if you're looking for something and you're open to something new, and that resonates with you, then contact me and I'll direct you to somebody. But yeah, so Page of Wands, you're looking for answers. Make sure that you not only seek answers, but you ask for help. And you don't just look for answers blindly without asking for what you're looking for. So specific questions are more helpful than what does it all mean? You know what I mean? And so if you have a specific, you're like, this is the thing in me that I'm trying to change, or the thing in my life that I'm trying to change, and you ask for clarification on that specifically, and you ask people you trust, teachers, healers, therapists, the universe, then you'll get specific answers back, and that will be more effective in terms of your pragmatic steps to your healing. But I like this for you because when you ask, when you look for answers, you ask for help, like I said, you get it. So like I said before, when you asked for healing, so you're getting it, and this is an aspect of the healing, is everything coming to the surface that wants to be healed. This is like, okay, so now what? Everything's come to I've asked for healing, everything's come into the surface that's ready to be healed in me, and then what do I do with it, Ask the universe, what do I do with it? Ask for clarification, and you'll be guided into a direction. And I think even some of you just need the divine connection. You just need to connect with the highest power. And once you do, things will start to shift because you'll have more resource. You'll feel connected to the oneness, and it will feel protective. The universe does not give you things you can't handle. The universe does not give you things that you did not set the intention to be given when you chose to incarnate into this life, right? I mean, we go down this path because there's things to learn, and we signed up. So if you remember that, you can also come back into your power. Because instead of victimizing yourself like, oh, this happened, or oh, this is happening, poor me, it becomes, no, I asked for this, so what is this teaching me, and what can I do, right? So then that shifts the energy too, because you're stepping into spiritual warriorship, okay? New circumstance. 5 of Swords. Very different energy from a normal deck, this card. So you're in the pressure cooker right now. You are absolutely in the pressure cooker of transformation. Welcome to the life of a Scorpio. In that pressure cooker, it's like different things are kind of coming at you. They're meeting at a certain point, in this compact point, just like it's showing in the card. These 5 swords are kind of meeting in this center. Why? I'm getting a few things. One, again, a sense of directionality, or the universe answering your question. You had a specific question, and it looks like the universe has, this is for a few of you, it's like the universe has been sending you answers and you haven't been receiving the answers because you didn't recognize it for what it was, or you weren't open to receiving even though you asked, or you weren't open to the mindset shift that occurred even if you did recognize it for what it is. But it's like the universe is still trying to answer it for you, and trying in so many different ways because you're not getting it. Not because you're dumb. You're not getting it because you're choosing not to get it, if that makes sense, or you just don't have the proper resourcing to understand the universe's signal when it comes, and that just comes with time. It's just practicing a muscle. And so, because you didn't get it the first time, the universe is like, okay, well here, okay, well here, okay, well here, and now you have this like buildup of answers that are basically about to burst the bubble, like in the best way possible. Like, I know the phrase is like, I hate to burst your bubble, but what does truth do when it bursts a bubble? It creates change, because we're no longer in delusion and we're in the real world. And even though that can sometimes be a little bit painful, that pain ultimately rises to be healed. And when the healing occurs, you're back in your alignment, you've leveled up, you've evolved, you've learned something, you've gained wisdom, right? And so remember that pain exists to give us wisdom. It doesn't exist to make us suffer for no reason. And so when you understand that about pain, you can be with pain in the discomfort of pain without feeling like you're going to die or feeling like something's wrong with you. And that's really, really important. That's really key. Especially for Scorpio, you feel so much, you need to allow it to be there. And so with that, it's like there's this bubble, this bubble of delusion. And we all have delusions. I'm not saying that you're delusional. Part of being human is having misunderstandings and misperceptions, and then learning how to see through those biases and come into greater truth, in greater alignment with our own truth first and foremost, and then whatever you believe beyond that is fine. So as we're learning to become ourselves, our truest selves, our most authentic selves in this lifetime, these things occur. We hold these bubbles of delusions that exist to teach us something about who we are. And it's like there's so many pressure points now in this bubble, and it's like you're trying to keep this bubble alive for some reason. I think it's probably linked to shadow or ancestral. If it's shadow and ancestral, there's a possibility that it's impossible to burst the bubble until you get that healing done. That's probably not going to be true for all of you. Maybe some of you are just really clinging on to the bubble for whatever reason. The bubble feels safe and protective, and I think a mindset shift needs to occur for you to feel safe bursting the bubble. But this 5 of Swords energy, the universe is trying to burst this bubble because it needs to be burst. You had a question, it is being answered, and that answer is in the bursting of the bubble. So if it feels like there's a lot of pressure, I'm feeling it in my heart in particular, solar plexus for some of you, maybe both for some of you. It's very, very linked to this 3 of Swords pain energy. Whatever you're holding, you just don't need it anymore. It could be false perception. It could just be a trauma moment that you're carrying in your body. We hold trauma in our bodies, and we all have trauma in this collective. And so, I mean, the task here is release, letting the universe burst your bubble. And it's like the more you cling on, the harder it's going to be, but it has to burst eventually because all false things die away eventually. And so if you can, Scorpios are very driven by truth. And so if you can open up to the fact that the universe holds truth in its highest version. I mean, there's layers of truth in everything, right? But the universe holds truth in its highest fashion. You are a human being with your inherited false perceptions. It's part of the game. And so instead of holding onto your perception of truth as if your life depends on it. I think what needs to happen is opening up to maybe the fact that you don't know. That maybe there's something that you don't know. And of course there's something you don't know. Everyone, I mean, who knows anything, really? I mean, we know what we know, but we're a very, limited individual incarnate consciousness having this experience, and then there's infinite experiences and energies beyond that. Like, it's literally infinite. And so if you can remember that, like, it's okay to be wrong, it's okay to misunderstand something, it's okay to have a misconception about something. We come by it honestly, and we're all learning. We're here to learn. Life is soul school, right? And so if you could shift your mindset, let go of the fear that you're going to die if this bubble is burst, and then open yourself up to learning a higher truth, the next version of truth, the level up from where you're at, from the universe, and just allow the universe to burst that bubble for you in full trust that it has your best interest at heart, right? You're going to feel so much better, because the second the bubble pops, it's like no more resistance, instant calm. I don't even think it's going to hurt that much. I think the anticipation hurts more than the reality. I think it's kind of like ripping off a Band-Aid. It hurts for, a second, and then you're fine. I think it's kind of like that. It's like, I think you're playing this up in your mind a lot more than it is in reality. I think in reality, there is potential here for instant transformation. And instant transformation is very easy. Because instead of, ripping that Band-Aid off slow, kind of particle by particle, glue particle by glue particle, each adhesive kind of sticking to your skin, it's just like, right? It's like you have the potential here to just rip it off. So why not just rip it off? Because you're Scorpio, right? Your nature is transformation. And so you're only tapping into your true nature by allowing yourself to do that. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to move on because this is so long. Okay. Your ego this month. We have the Fool, new start. Okay, so you are ready for this. You're ready for this new start. This feels like the last gasp, and it may not even be current time you, adult you, teenage you, whatever you are. It could just be, this is a wounded child part that's really clinging, and you have to make the mindset shift that it's not a part of your current reality. It's a trauma that's it's an old trauma that's stuck in time, that's holding this belief or whatever. And if you can allow that to occur, where you're like, okay, I am not this little part of me. This little part of me is a stuck part of me that needs to be released, and allow it to release. And I think you'll move right on, because I think most of you, you're just ready. You're just ready to move on. Again, you're bored. You're exhausted of the pain. You're done with looping. You want something new. And all these cards support that newness, especially with the Fool here. This is a new you. This is you ready to set off on a new journey, post-healing work, where you're going to experience this huge liftoff. It's going to be a rocket to the moon. You're seeking answers. You're going to get them, right? And that's the Fool. The Fool is the willingness to take healthy risk. And that's warriorship, too. The willingness to take healthy risk is warriorship. And to fall into the universe a bit. So I think a lot of you may be coming into a deeper sense of trust or faith in the universe this month. I think you may be at the start of whatever that pattern is, that new journey that you're creating for yourself. And so addressing trust and faith in the universe is probably a good start, because in that trust fall, we feel safe enough to sit in the discomfort and do the hard work, because we're no longer afraid that we're going to die every second of every day. You know what I mean? So if you can get out of the fear, step into the warriorship, walk with your fear, and say, we're going to do this, and it's going to be a little uncomfortable, and we've survived discomfort before, and we'll survive it again, and we'll heal, and we'll come into a greater alignment, a greater sense of peace, a greater balance, a wiser sense of self. If you can stay in that energy, then this will be easy for you. I see a route that is potentially very easy, but that route is only through surrender to the universe, and to your process, and to the discomfort, and to your emotions, and all that good stuff, and asking for help and all that good stuff. That route is so clean, because it's like everything else is just falling away. But there's a lot of other routes you can take and choices you can make, hanging on to certain things, veering off into the wrong direction. Resistance is not your friend. this month, unless you're resisting shadow patterns that you're trying to get away from. So, that said, this month will be great and healing and transformative for you if you just surrender to the universe and do your work. And high potential for that with the Fool energy, because it means your mind's there. You're ready for a new adventure. You're ready for the next thing. And you're going to get it if you pursue it through the proper channels with the right support. Okay, your external environment. This month, we have the King of Pentacles, Daddy Saturn. All right. I feel like most of you are in a pretty good financial position, actually. Most of you. So this Nine of Pentacles that says you're not is a liar, which may be why it's coming up to be addressed, because you may have this moment where you're like, I'm doing fine with finances, why am I still freaking out? You know, that could be. And Scorpio rules the 8th house, it's death and taxes. You're supposed to be good at money. Like, it's something that Scorpio is like traditionally good at. So if there's a block there, it's a block, it's not who you are, and I think it's important to remember that as well. Okay, so King of Pentacles. What else? You're gonna have moments where you get to just focus on work or projects or be on task this month. That's gonna be resourceful and helpful or supportive for you, because we need to check out every once in a while, you know, take a break, switch tasks or whatever. You'll be doing a lot of inner work, but interspersed with that is just, you know, you being practically minded and going about your day, and that will be helpful. Some of you are in leadership positions, so just manage your energy well. I know you're going through a lot. You're gonna have to be in your spiritual warriorship and not allow that to trickle into people that you take care of. That's certainly super relevant for me, you know, in terms of like, you know, my personal shit's my personal shit, but when I have a client, I show up with that client, and, you know, it's, I think anybody that does any kind of emotional labor, you know, being able to be with whatever it is that you're dealing with and still show up in your alignment and integrity is so key. It's also a very particular skill. And so if you're in leadership positions, you're going to have to hone in on that. Even if it's not perfect, you know, work on it. Leave your baggage at the door when, you know, someone else is calling, you know. What else? You're in a better position than you think you are. Think about all the ways that you are, you know, because when we're in the work, when we're really lost in the work, especially a new cycle or a particularly intense cycle, there's a tendency to focus on what isn't working. Not necessarily because there's a habit of doing that, you know, necessarily, but because you're focused on the healing, and focusing on the healing means focusing on what isn't healed. And so don't veer too much in that direction to the point to where it gets, to where it feels like that's all there is, because you are a whole person. Whatever's coming out to be healed are just aspects of you. You are a whole person. You've gotten to this point, and you have fought battles to get here. You have had to keep putting one foot in front of the other. You've had to survive, right? Scorpio, you're a survivor. So remember that. Remember who you are. Remember what you're good at, what your skills are, what your unique gifts are, that you've brought with you into this world. Who are you, and how do you express that in a way that nobody else can do, because they're not you, right? You are the king of your kingdom. We all are. You know, your own body, your own mind, your own soul. You are the king of that kingdom. You are the king of that reality, the reality that you are manifesting for yourself. And so if something doesn't work, change it. At the same time, acknowledge what does work and be thankful for it. Thankful to yourself for it as well. I mean, the universe and everything else that helps carve the path for you, all good things to be grateful for, but don't neglect your self-gratitude, because you have to make choices. You have to take action. You have to be conscious and aware and willing to make shifts in your life in order to create that kingdom for yourself. And, you know, that's, you know, we all want to just be safe and happy. That's what we all want. And so, you know, get it. Get your safety. Get your happiness. A lot of that's inner work, not outer. I learned a long time ago that that if I do the inner work, the outer shifts itself. So it's like, you know, if I don't have money, and I do my inner work, the money comes. If I don't have a relationship and I want one, if I do the inner work, the relationship comes. So, and that requires a big mindset shift too, because we have a tendency to just obsess, especially Scorpio, we have a tendency to obsess, or to try to continue to force things through sheer force of will to work in our lives, when in reality, the inner is manifesting the outer all the time. So all you have to do is make the adjustment in yourself, and the outer shifts. So remember that. Hopes and fears this month, 2 of Wands. Power of choice. So the fear here is that power of choice. It's so powerful to understand that you have complete control of your reality, of everything that happens next, of everything that you do. You have complete control over you. You don't have control over other people in your lives or the external circumstances that are happening to you. You control the response, and through that response, you also control mindset, emotions, belief system, all these things that if you shift, you will then see the shift occur. So you're in control of your environment in that sense, but you're only in control of your environment through your own inner work, not through trying to manage what's going on out here. And keep in mind about something about manifestation that's really important is you're always, usually, if you do your work especially, if you live in a conscious way, you're always a couple steps ahead of what you're manifesting, because the universe, the external reality is dense, it's physical material, it's dense, it vibrates slower, which all that means is that it takes longer for things to manifest in the physical material world, whereas spiritually, it's instantaneous. And so whatever shifts you do in your life, whatever transformation, whatever healing you do, that gets you in a better place, a greater sense of inner fulfillment, inner wealth, inner happiness, inner wisdom, right? You have to let the universe catch up. And so whatever's being reflected to you, you're already manifesting a different reality, right? Each breath is a new manifestation. And so what you're experiencing now is what you manifested, yesterday or a month ago or whatever. We're just in this constant flow of everyone with their own free will and sovereignty manifesting around you. And, you're in control of what you come across, because that's what you're attracting to you, like a magnet. So that's beautiful, because there's complete and utter total liberation in the realization that we co-create our reality. And it's terrifying if we're not in our power, because we feel like we're a slave to our own negative manifestations. And that's common. I'm an expert manifester. I'm about to expand into manifesting into like coaching workshops and things like that, which I'll release soon and open to the public. But within that, it took years for me to do my own manifestation work to get there. And also realizing that the way that I understand manifestation is very, very different from the way that it's mostly taught. There are a few key people that are excellent, but for the most part, it's like the pop stuff, like The Secret or like whatever. It's bullshit, because it's a lot of love and light and bypassing. And the thing about manifestation is that you are manifesting all the time, but if you're not doing your inner work, you're still unconsciously manifesting things that you don't like, belief systems that you would like to change. And if you're trying to manifest what you want, quote unquote, whether it's like money or love or whatever, losing weight, whatever you're trying to manifest that is kind of like surfacey. Not that money is surfacey, money is survival, and I understand that, but in terms of like extraneous, like you just want stuff, or you just want to lose weight because you have bad body image, or whatever it is for you, it's like you can't manifest losing weight if your unconscious belief about it is that you're overweight, or that you don't look good or whatever. So it's like, if you want to manifest losing weight, you actually first have to heal your poor body image, that your perceptions of your body that you're holding that are hurting you. And so that's not taught. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that some of you are in a place where you're ready. You're like, I've done my healing work. I will continue to do this healing work this month. And I am ready to manifest my reality. Some of you aren't quite there yet, because you're not quite empowered enough yet. And so what you're doing is half-assed manifestations, or you're manifesting if you're trying to lose weight, you will continue to manifest the things that trigger you about your body, and that feels really, really bad. But what that's trying to do is get you to address the inner dialogue that you have about your body so that you heal from it. And so manifestation, if you have a lot of things that need to be healed, can be very difficult because you are manifesting that, but the middle ground to getting to that end result of losing weight is every single trigger you have that is in the way of that. Every piece of negative self-talk that continues to perpetuate your poor body image. And if you have the skills to work with that and clear that, it's not a big deal. If you don't, it can be overwhelming or confusing. And it can lead to you feeling very powerless, because what it feels like the universe is doing is confirming all the ways in which you don't have good body image, or in the ways in which you don't like your appearance. But the gift in that is it's actually saying, hey, look at all the ways you don't like your appearance. It's in the way of your manifestation. You better take care of it. So it's a gift. It's a gift, but if you don't have that frame of reference or the resources or tools or whatever, that can be very disruptive. So that's why I'm trying to say all this. I mean, I know this is a lot of information, but I'm also just trying to get all the information that's coming in out so that you are in a better position to deal with it. And so the Two of Wands is nice because it's about stepping into your power and recognizing it's not necessarily about taking a path or making a choice yet. That's kind of more the Three of Wands. Or the Two of Wands going into the Three of Wands. It's like the tail end of the Two of Wands. Two of Wands is really about, oh yeah, I have the power to walk through whatever door. Like if you have two doors in front of you and you're paralyzed with indecision, you're like, what door do I go through? The magic of the Two of Wands is realizing, oh, there is no wrong door. There's just me having the power to choose a door and walk through it. And if you don't like what that door has in store for you, and again, this is Four of Wands, experimenting, exploring. If you don't like what that door has in store for you, you can either back out, walk through the next door, or, going through that door will probably reveal 5 other doors you can walk through. Like, it's infinite. It's infinite. Just go through a door, right? But in order to do that, to understand that, you need to step into your power and say, I have the personal authority as a sovereign being, as the co-creator of my reality, to walk through the door and to choose which door I want. Not because it's fated or because there's a right answer, but because that's the door you want, okay? So that's the hope and the fear. The fear is, if you haven't stepped into that power yet, it's like the fear of walking through a door, or the fear of coming into that power. If you're empowered enough at this point in your journey, the hope is that the excitement of that ability to say, oh, I have a limitless opportunity. I can walk through whatever the fuck door I want, and then you're gonna walk through it. So that depends on you and where you're at. I feel both. According to the audience that's gonna come see this, I feel both. I feel Scorpios that are like, let's do it, and I feel Scorpios that are kind of like, ah. So, fair enough. Okay, outcome. We're almost done, guys. 9 of Swords. I like this because it's all blurry. I think it really represents the confusion of the 9 of Swords. Oh, so it's definitely some analysis paralysis about choosing a door in particular. I also think everything's coming at you at once. It's like you asked for healing and you're so done, you're like, I just want it now. And so it's like the floodgates opened and everybody that's in need of healing within you is like, all right, let's have a party. So you need to resource this month. Watch out for your sleeping. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you having insomnia? What can you do to try to curb that insomnia? I highly recommend meditating before you go to bed, doing some sort of practice that gets you into your body and out of your mind. If you get into your mind, it's not going to be that fun. Mostly because these shadow cells are at play, and they're definitely kind of running your mind. I can really feel that. I think a lot of the shadow aspects are about negative self-talk and yeah, just things you tell yourself. So, again, it doesn't feel too bad. I mean, the 9 of Swords can feel really bad sometimes, and it doesn't feel that bad, or it at least doesn't feel like your first rodeo, or like something that you're dealing with that's new. This could just be a pattern that you've had forever. I think for most of you it is. Maybe it's a little bit more agitated because these things are rising. But, I think many of you, this is a pattern you've dealt with. So Also, watch out for headaches. If you're headache prone, take precaution this month. Really try to sink into your body, because if you overthink or try to overperceive or try to, I feel a lot of addiction to the need to know and addiction to outcome, and that is a killer. Both of those things are killers. Addiction to the need to know can really lead to like a lot of headaches and things. Addiction to outcome can lead to obsession over what's not working, and so you need to check those and try to come out of those addictions. I mean, that's shadow. Addiction to the need to know and outcome are generally shadow behaviors. So that being said, yeah, you're gonna have to really consciously work to say no to the shadow patterns when they come up. It's gonna be thought-based for most of you. And I think because you have so many questions, again, I know you're seeking answers. Because you have so many questions, I think there's gonna be this tendency that you're gonna have to try to curb. This tendency to like try to overthink the answer, or try to combine disparate ideas. Like if you have specific philosophies or beliefs or ideas about this old system, and about an old belief system basically, but you also have a new belief system that you've grown over time that's better for you, but you haven't actually dismantled the old belief system. It's like I think some of you are trying to create this pattern connection between the old and the new and like make it work logically and try to like stuff it all together, but it's like you're trying to make a puzzle out of puzzle pieces that are from different boxes, and so it's not going to work. I mean, you can believe anything. The only objective truth is you create your reality subjectively. You can believe whatever you want. And so, you know, that's both the liberation piece and the entrapment piece. Is since you can choose to believe whatever you want, you can choose to believe yourself into a trap or believe yourself into expansion. And if you're trying to do both at the same time, if you're trying to integrate feelings of expansion with feelings of entrapment and limiting beliefs, you're going to panic. You're going to panic. You're going to feel like you're going crazy because they don't fit together. And so it's like, you know, I look at it this way, and I'm going to use spirituality because that's what I can speak on, but you can apply this to something more mundane if that's what applies to you. But, you know, my mother was very Christian in a way that was very dysfunctional. I'm not saying all Christians are, but she was. And so I had this idea in my mind about Christianity, right? You know, the rest of my family, all kind of varying things. My father, you know, is you know, a very sciencey man, not in a way that is judgmental of other belief systems, but he's a science guy, and I preferred that, right? And then, you know, I had a spiritual awakening. I explored. I found, you know, there's a Jewish side of my family that I also appreciate a lot. I enjoy having that heritage within me, even though I'm not a practicing Jew. And you know, when I found my own way, it ended up being Sufism. A little bit later down the line, I, you know, discovered shamanism and realized I wanted to be a shamanic practitioner. And so here's the thing, is I have all these different belief systems that I have pulled from. I've had to rewrite my you know, ideas of Christianity, so that I could, because I took an oath when I was initiated into the Sufi order. I took an oath to respect all belief systems and all prophets and saints. And so with that, I had to rewrite my Christianity story so that it did not contradict the oath I made, you know. And then I had to you know, realize where Judeo-Christian, you know, ideals kind of slotted into my belief system. To be real with you, they just don't. That just does not work for me. But I can respect what's in it. And then there's also people like Joseph Eli, who and Neville Goddard before him, who they completely reinterpreted the Bible to make it a manifestation manual, and it's amazing. But it would contradict, you know, a lot of preconceived ideas that are held about the Bible, right? You know, they reconstructed every single metaphor, and they made it a manifestation manual, and it's literally, it makes me like the Bible, which is crazy. And then, you know, so I think what I'm trying to say here is that I have a lot of beliefs and perceptions of varying belief systems that I do or do not incorporate into my practice as they fit or don't fit. What doesn't fit, I leave out. What fits, I bring in. I dismantle any judgment, shame, blame, whatever. And, then I have this container, well, very expansive. It's barely, well, I have this container of belief for my Sufi practice. And it is a very expansive container because it's omnist. And so any belief system can fit within it. It's huge. But it's still a container because I'm being held by Prophet Muhammad. I'm being held by everybody in my lineage, and I'm linked to that. I'm being held by my teacher, so I have all these people, living and non-living, that are holding space for me in it for my own spiritual growth, and that's what I call a container. And I'm going to loop this back around in a minute. Now, a few years later, I discovered shamanism. Right, shamanism is a vocation in a way of being. It's not a belief system necessarily. I mean, there are certain things that we hold as true. Everything's subject to change because it's entirely dependent on the information we gather from spirit. So it's very open-ended. Again, it's an expansive container in that anything could be included in it if spun a certain way. But there is a container of a cosmology that allows me to be in my truth without confusion, and allows me to filter out any belief that does not work for me. And that container is being held by my teachers and by spirit. And if I veer too far in belief or thought or whatever from my center alignment, I bounce against the container that's being held for me, and then I come back into my alignment. So I can't go too far in a direction because eventually I hit my container. And so I'm not in a vacuum. I'm not in like this giant, expanse of space that has no end. I am in a container of safety that allows me to be here now in my alignment and belief system in a way that works. And so while that's very open-ended because I can incorporate whatever I want and discard whatever I want, it still gives me a core belief system or foundation in order for me to ground myself in a way of being. And so what I'm trying to say here is it doesn't matter what your system is, as long as it's not a toxic system. As long as you have a system that resonates with you, that holds a good container for your growth and healing and transformation and to be authentically you without repression, then just be in that container. You don't have to try to figure everything out from every single belief system ever. You can just be in the container of your choice that you are attracted to and just allow everything to come out of that, because any system taken to its fullest mastery, which really has no end, but it can be taken pretty far in a lifetime. Any system will teach you anything that you need to know if it's a good system. So like ancient, I do Tai Chi too. I could only do Tai Chi and do my Tai Chi practice consistently in that modality and learn everything that I need to know. Anything that I learned from Sufism or shamanism, I could learn through Tai Chi. Right? Because that's its own container that contains enough holistic subtlety that everything exists in it. It's just there's specific flavors. Tai Chi Taoism has a flavor. Shamanism has a flavor. Sufism has a flavor. They're all part of me. They're all interwoven in a way that makes the puzzle work. They also hold a container so that I don't get lost in the weeds. And so I know this is a really long explanation, but what I'm saying is stop trying to make pieces fit together that don't fit. You can exist in a system and somebody else have a different system and then both be totally fine and truthful. You're just in your own flavor of whatever system and you're safe in your container, and so are they. So stop trying to make things work if they don't work. Just find something that does work. You don't have to try to fit all pieces of information that you've ever learned and cram them into your mind. Just let it go. Just let things that don't work go. And you will feel a lot better. I think a lot of the confusion is you're trying to jam things together and they're not meant to be jammed together. So just be in your system and let that system carry you down its own path of wisdom, based on your heart sense of what is right for you, okay? And, that's always going to be what feels like love and what feels like acceptance, because repression, blame, shame, judgment, not the answer. I can say that within my own belief system with certainty, not the answer. So whatever feels good to you, what feels accepting, what feels expansive, what feels like there are infinite avenues of exploration and no confusion, that is what you want to find. And that may just mean you're going to have to go through and let go of all the beliefs that don't serve that. Let go of all the beliefs that don't serve that. You're in charge of your belief system. Nothing is true unless you make it true. And you'll feel a lot better, right? So that's the best use of this energy. Now, if you don't do that, a lot of confusion, probably some insomnia, some panic, some analysis paralysis. And so that's how you'll have to resource. If you experience those things, be like, oh yeah, I'm confused. I'm trying to fit things together that don't fit. Let's throw it out, right? The other thing that you can do is just stop letting your mind spin, drop into your body, breathe, resource that way, okay? Because another thing that you can do, and I discovered this in somebody I was speaking with recently, is swords are tricky because collectively we're very mind heavy and not in a good way. The mind is a tool, a great tool that you can use skillfully, but we don't use it skillfully. We use it for everything, and it's a problem. And so if you're experiencing an emotion, a core wound of some sort, pain, and you're not open to it just being an emotion that you're experiencing, or an old story or belief, or whatever trauma, you might organize your belief system around that trauma, taking that trauma as objective truth rather than trauma. Like, something that happened to you that was traumatic, that needs to be healed but doesn't reflect the greater reality that you're living in, right? And so be very careful about having thought patterns that you think are logical when they're actually rooted in an emotion. And so, like, you could have a 2-hour conversation or a 3-hour conversation, whatever, with yourself or with someone where you're just going in circles and looping and trying to reconcile something that can't be reconciled, because that 3-hour conversation, whether it's in your bed at night because you're having insomnia or you're just having it with a person or whatever, that 3-hour conversation could probably be condensed down to one thing, which is I'm afraid, I'm angry, I'm scared, whatever. It's a very simple emotion, and it's creating this huge web, and of course you're confused, and of course your mind is spinning, and of course nothing makes sense. And of course, you're creating a reality where that continues to confuse you, because you're just trying to make the mind do everything instead of just sinking into the emotion, letting it tell you what it needs, listening to it, and then letting it go. And so I think ultimately the big pattern here that you're working with is mindset shift. You are not your emotions. Your emotions are something you're experiencing. And your painful emotions are there to teach you a gift or a wisdom that you need. Now, they won't give you that gift if you stay in the loop. And so the mindset shift is, I'm experiencing emotion, I'm not my emotion, I am a full holistic human being, I'm having this one emotion and this is what it needs, asking it what it needs, addressing it that way. What that's gonna do is it's gonna keep you out of the mind spin. So instead of one single emotion, or maybe a network of emotions, but for the sake of argument, one single emotion generating this entire belief system that keeps spinning and spinning and getting bigger and creating a tornado of mess in your life, okay? And that's shadow. So I highly recommend a healing or support this month, whether it's a therapist, a shamanic healing, a reading with me, not to plug myself in, but I can help you with this. This is kind of my bag, okay? Or, just any practices, any meditation practices that you have, do them, because it will get you into your body rather than your mind. And this is just a rewiring process. You have to retrain yourself to do this. And once you do, it will free up the energy that you're using to trap yourself in your mind, and you'll be able to just spin off into the next journey, and you'll be the fool again. Total faith, surrender, trust in the universe, moving towards your goal, towards your soul's purpose, towards your vision. We all want things. We all want to be safe. We all want to be happy. We all want to do something in this world that we can be proud of at the end of our lives. So just do this work so that you can do that. Or do this work so that you can recognize the ways in which you've already done that, okay? Depending on where you are in your life. And not depending on where you are in your life, The smallest children express their gifts so beautifully. And so it's like, even when you're 1, 2, 3, you've already done your work. You'll be able to do more, but you've already expressed your soul's purpose in so many ways. We can't not express it. It's just part of life. And so it's like healing is opening up pathways to express it better. And healing is opening up our ability to perceive the ways in which we've already brought our gifts into the world, right? You have worth, you have value, you are loved, whether you feel it or not. You deserve to have all the happiness and success and, wisdom and joy that you want in your life. And sometimes it really is as simple as committing yourself to accepting that reality as fact, as truth. So that's a lot. I love you guys. Please like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see the next Scorpio video in March. Please schedule something with me if you would like to, a private reading. You can do so in the box below. And I will see you guys next month. Bye. We're in this together. I'm with you. Okay? All right.